Good evening and welcome to El Pozo, the show which focuses on the third tier of Spanish football. Delighted to be joined this evening by Tom Morgan Charters. Tom, I've seen you quite recently, I seem to think, unless my memory serves me even less well than it usually does. Where have we been this weekend? Where haven't we been, to be honest?
Well, I took in this weekend 7 games. I think you took in, how many did you take in? Six games, didn't you? Of all different varieties of levels of Spanish football.
We have indeed had a lot of football since last Thursday afternoon, haven't we? It's been brilliant. And within those 6/7 games, we have also seen some tremendous Primera Federacion action, tension. We can't wait to talk about this evening and lots of other games that have gone on this weekend that we have managed to watch and enjoy. But we'll start with the news as always, Tom. And perhaps the biggest story of all, I suppose, is the story down at Juventud de Torremolinos. And there's a little bit about this that slightly concerns me as well. It's the news that Antonio Calderon and Juventud de Torremolinos have parted ways.
Yeah, it was only announced literally about an hour or two before recording this. I really don't understand this decision, really, because he's really turned it around from in these past few months and sort of looking like a safer team and playing not too bad. And it seems to be sort of a little nudge from the higher ups saying they want to be a bit more ambitious and spend some money, but I don't know how they can say that after the troubles that they've had this season with money.
Well, this is a team, isn't it, that, as you say, have had some money issues, a club that's had some money issues. And obviously, recently, this sort of concerning rumour flying about the possibility that they might be relocated, the suggestion that the debts haven't been paid by the new owners. And I just worry that this might be slightly to do with stuff that's going on off the field. I hope it is, in a way, to do with the football, because we don't want to see any club go through what some of the rumours have been suggesting this club might be about to go through. But there is that possibility until we know more. They aren't in a brilliant place on the pitch, but I think this is a similar situation to what we've talked about with Real Avilés Industrial in other weeks with the sacking of Danny Vidal. You know, they're just above the relegation zone, and really for a team that's come from where they've come last year, obviously, so in the Federacion, and also to have lost their best player, Fran Castillo, last summer. I don't think this is a bad season, is it, overall so far? I totally agree with you. And if that's the reason, if they're not happy with what's going on the pitch and they feel he's underperforming with the players that he's got available to him, I think they're completely wrong on that front.
Yeah, totally agree with it. I don't know what else they can expect really from, say, that squad and the motivation of them, really, because like I said, they had money troubles. They didn't get paid a couple of times, I believe, earlier on in the season. And yeah, he's managed to get them going in the last few months and turned out some okay performances and get them above that dotted line. But now you have to question whether they're going to keep above that dotted line and who they're going to bring in.
Well, exactly that, isn't it? Who do you bring at this stage of the season? And we will keep an eye on that one with interest. Obviously, let you know as soon as we find out ourselves over the coming days on our social media streams. One coach who is sticking around in a job at the same club for considerably longer than Calderon now envisages it going forward, because he's gone, is Beto Company, of course. Compagnie, it should be, I think, because he's, as been pointed out to me, it's he's from that part of the world where they say the NYs and yeah. So yeah, he's had another year added to his contract at Hercules, hasn't he? Just the 3 defeats since he's been there. Are you surprised by this decision overall, or do you think this is a case of he came in mid-season and they want to give him a full season and presumably a full summer window to shape the squad how he wants, and that's the thinking behind this one?
Yeah, I would have said that he's been very let's say reliable and what's the word, sort of he's got them sort of defensively solid until this weekend. Yeah, and he's one of the big names who did well with Andorra, didn't he, last season, and got them nearly promoted. And yeah, I understand why they extended it, because there'd probably be other clubs sniffing around to get him.
Yeah, I think that'll probably be the reason behind it, won't it? And yeah, I think I agree. He's done a pretty solid job, and it's just the 3 defeats to say since he's come in, and they're in and around the playoffs. But let's not forget, this team did start the season for me as one of the favourites for possibly automatic promotion, at the very least, in the playoff places, and they are playing catch up as far as that's concerned right now. So yeah, I can see the logic behind it, but I can also see why possibly some are saying, well, has he done well enough in the time he's been with us, given the squad he's got at his disposal? Is this perhaps a little bit of a hasty decision? We shall see whether it turns out to be the right or the wrong choice as we go forward. One team that we do know, we obviously mentioned, I think last week, some teams that were hovering on the brink of joining us in Primera Federacion next season, as the Segunda Federacion season draws to a close early. There's obviously only 34 games, so there's only 3 or 4 games left at that level. And we have our first confirmed team now, don't we, Tom, who are joining us, in fact, rejoining us after just 1 season away.
Yeah, Real Union managed to get their win yesterday, and also Alaves B helping them by losing. So yeah, confirmed promotion yesterday. And one of our friends from the pod, Matt Harrison, was lucky to be there. Met a Welsh player on loan from Aston Villa. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what they're going to bring to our divisions next season.
Yeah, I think this is the link there is Unai Emery's brother, I think, is essentially in charge of the club, isn't he? And we did see a couple of Aston Villa loanees there in their season in Primera RFEF last season. It didn't work out as they'd hoped. They were certainly going into the season believing they would be one of the contenders for the playoffs in Grupo Uno, ended up being relegated, bounced straight back, and we'll see what happens this time. As you say, Matt met one of the loanees. I'm not sure he'll be there next year. Interesting, he went on his own as well. No, just the one Villa player, as far as I'm aware, within this season. And will there be more next season as they climb back up to a higher level? We shall see. But congratulations to them on making their stay away from us, a very short one. And there will potentially be another 2 sides confirmed this coming weekend as being promoted, one of them being a filial, unfortunately. Deportivo Fabril, who are Deportivo Coruña's filial, are expected to wrap up Grupo Uno. And we also will be much happier, I think, than that to see the San Andreu with all going as it is at the moment, pretty well, certainly going to join us next season. Then, of course, that's the possibility if Europa don't get promoted of a derby in Barcelona, which I think a lot of people would love to see in Primera F, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I think that's got to be something on the calendar for me, yourself, and Nick to get to. If it should happen, really. They've been performing really well this season, and the team in second place, who were Poblense, have dropped off a little bit in recent weeks, and also San Andreu beating them on the weekend as well.
Yeah, it looks like they wrapped it up pretty much, not mathematically yet, but it's pretty much all done and dusted. We say just the season finishes at the beginning of May, and so time is running out for anybody to catch either Deportivo Fabril or San Andreu. I don't see it happening. So that should be 3 teams that are definitely coming to join us from August onwards. Let's go back to the present, though, rather than thinking about the 26-27 season. Let's start with Grupo Uno, the 3 games chosen this week. We start with Pontevedra 2, Baracaldo 0. A really, really big win this is for the home side, isn't it?
Yeah, before this game, they hadn't tasted victory in 7 games, and also they were struggling for goals, where it was actually quite the opposite for Baracaldo, who have only lost once in their last 9 games. And also Pontevedra's first win since the beginning of January, which we've mentioned quite a few times on this show. And also, did you see the pitch looks like it's recovering from the wet winter months quite well?
Yeah, I don't quite know what they've done there. I can't believe that's the original pitch. They must have done a little bit of either they've got out their green felt tip, or they've relayed a bit of it, because there's no way that pitch was ever recovering from the state it was in. I think they may have had to to perform some surgery, shall we say. But yeah, I think they have won, haven't they, since the first weekend in January? They haven't won on their own patch, and that's the key, really, isn't it? They've done it, and the cabbage patch, as we like to call it, or the ploughed field, whatever it is, has proved to be a real hindrance, to them, hasn't it? But yeah, they were pretty good in this game. I don't know what you thought.
Yeah, they made 4 changes, 2 in defence and 2 in midfield, which were forced with suspensions to Ribeiro and Bryce Abelenda. But then it did mean the return of, I think, one of our favourites, Yelko Pino, who was quite influential in this game. They really took the game to Barricaldo. And also another player that I called out last time, even though I did get his name wrong, I called him Luismi, but it's Luis Yao. He was causing all sorts of problems. And he got his first start in quite a while. I can't remember when he actually started, or even if he had started a game for Pontevedra. And just over 20 minutes, he manages to get in between 2 defenders, and Oya Lopez tries to get in between him and the ball. And there was a slightest touch from him, which sees Lopez going down to ground. I'm not convinced that was a foul, which Luis Yao goes on to put the ball calmly in the net, and the ref and FES had other plans and disallowed it for the slightest of touches, which denied him a really well taken goal.
Yeah, I'm a bit disappointed with this one as well. I can't see it as a clear foul. It doesn't make much sense to me at all. It is interesting. I agree with you. Luisao seems to have been regarded as an impact player, hasn't he? But what I've seen of him when he has come on, he's made a real impact. And for a side that's struggling for goals, I'm really surprised it's taken him that long to earn himself a place in the starting lineup. But yeah, he looked really on it from the start in this one. And of course, Resende, who's another player who has really impressed me this season, also I thought had one of his best games for a long time.
Yeah, he was quite unfortunate early on when he came on in like the 64th minute. He did a bit of lovely skill to beat the keeper, and he beat his defenders, but he was unfortunate that one of the defenders recovered and blocked the shot. And if that had gone in, I think that would have been my goal of the match day.
Yeah, he really is a talented player. I suppose that's the problem. There feels like a lot of creativity in this side, in the wide areas especially. And I think that those kind of players are going to need a better playing surface than they've had to deal with the last few months. But I think the big problem is that the goals have dried up, haven't they, from the number 9? I think really they were reliant on Compa. Let's not forget Compa was in Primera RFEF last season. So he was inevitably going to have a little bit of a dip after a really good spell in front of goal. And so where do the goals come from when he's not scoring? Of course, earlier on in the season, they had Danny Selma, but he left under a cloud after penalty gate. So, yeah, they need the likes of Luis Sauer and Resende to chip in with goals. And I think we need to see more of them, both of them. I don't know what you think. I think in the absence of a dominant centre forward, these are the players that can put Pontevedra back where they want to be and still keep them with this chance of making the top 5, which seemed very unlikely at the start of the season, but for much of this season has been a real possibility.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to take, because they're both good centre forwards, and hopefully, like we said, with the pitch being a lot better now, they'll get some more chances created from those wide players, especially from that left-hand side, which I've mentioned previously with Cuesta and Alberto Gil. There's bound to be more goals from these 2 players, I've no doubt.
And a big win, as you say, for United, I think, actually. But yeah, a big win in the context of the promotion pitch as well. And Barricaldo really I thought overall they were pretty average. I don't know what you thought. I mean, Pontevedra totally deserved to win this game. And a team coming in with just 1 defeat in 9. I expect a lot more from them. Yeah,
he basically let the game sail by them, really. Didn't look a threat at all until literally like the last 5 minutes where he had one glaring opportunity to level it. It was a deep cross from the left to the far post where the substitute Mandiang nods it across to Alex Valeno, and somehow he gets the shot totally wrong, and he was only a few yards out. I think it was harder to miss than score there.
Yeah, really poor. But as you say, it took 85 minutes before we saw anything really by way of an attacking threat from them, and deservedly beaten. And they have been suspects on the road for much of the season, but seem to have turned it around in recent weeks. And the consequences of this are not quite as serious as it might have been. They've still managed to retain their position, up at the top of the table, up in the top positions that they want to obviously finish in a few weeks. But yeah, this was, I think, a real bad day at the office for them. And conversely, Pontevedra, of course, do have this midweek game coming up, don't they, as well? So they're not actually in the top 5 at the moment. But if they were to win the game in hand, so to speak, away at Estadio in a couple of days, they would do. And I think this is a really big boost for them to take with them to the Basque Country for that unusual circumstance for them, of course, which is a midweek fixture, which they, of course, almost never play in Primera Federacion, unless there were ridiculous circumstances as there were with this. If you remember, there were the ducks swimming on the Arenas de Getxo pitch in Fedora. Moving on to the game that we both witnessed live, Tom, and of course, it's had to be one of our 3. We probably would have included the other one we saw live, which was Guadalajara against Racing Ferrol, but we just thought that would be a bit unfair on everyone else because we featured Guadalajara a few times because we love them. But this one definitely was always going to get mentioned, wasn't it? Zamora 2, Unionistas 3. What an occasion this was.
Yeah, what a day it was. And it was over 25 degrees, wasn't it? I don't know how they coped with playing there because I think we struggled with the heat, didn't we?
Very much so, yeah. Just sitting in the stand was hot enough, wasn't it? Yeah, I mean, remarkable. And we are very fond of Juanje, a former Yaclano Deportivo player who is now at Unionistas. And we caught a quick word with him at the end of the game as he trudged across the pitch. And I say trudged because he was delighted, of course. I think the trudging was just because he was absolutely exhausted. It covered every blade of grass, as he always does. And when you're doing that 25-degree heat, it doesn't matter how used to it you are. And that has got to take a real toll, hasn't it? I think both sets of players, you say, cope really well with an unseasonably warm day in Zamora, we are told. And it's interesting they ended up finishing 3-2 to Unionistas because for a lot of the game, it looked like it was just going to be 1-0, didn't it? It looked like Zamora, without being particularly impressive, had done enough to sustain their playoff challenge with a 3 points that they were going to pick up from this one. And then it all went a bit crazy in the last 10 minutes or so, including added time.
Yeah, it was, like I said, a very tight affair in the first half. Very little chances created. One fell to Pinan with a free header, which was poorly executed. Zamora had a couple of set pieces and long throws, which resulted in the goal for Miki Cordena. And well, we wasn't really too impressed with the forward players that Unionistas started, was we?
No, I mean, Juan Artola has bounced about a bit, hasn't he? He started, I think, at Athletic Club. He's played with Alcorcon in Segunda, I believe. He's been at Merida this season already. I've never been completely convinced by him. I don't want him to be wearing the number 9 shirt, really, which is effectively what he was doing. Or you could argue it was a false 9 position with 2 of them sort of rotating. I mean, they got a guy sat on the bench, for me, who is the centre forward that I would like to see playing for them, and we'll have a little bit more about him later, perhaps. But yeah, it didn't really work. I didn't think. I think Zamora were perhaps a little bit fortunate to take the lead. I don't think they were particularly convincing either. But once they took the lead, I was just a bit surprised by the way that they addressed the situation in which they found themselves. They're just a little bit too negative for me. I don't know what you thought.
Yeah, totally agree. Very negative. Like, we had this conversation about multiple teams that we're fed up of teams getting a 1-0 lead and then just sitting back and just stop playing. But got to give credit to Unionistas. They started the second half a lot better, being more dominant, a bit more aggressive with their play, pressing higher up and winning more duels in the midfield, which saw Zamora dropping deeper and deeper and then relying on individuals to make vital saves, including the post as well, making a vital save.
Yeah, I think one or two of Zamora's best players didn't have their best day. I think we were pretty excited about watching Kiki Marquez because he's a bit of a hero to us, isn't he? But I thought he had quite a quiet game. I think that's partly to do with the heat or just the way the game went for him. He got booked and just generally quite a frustrating afternoon from his perspective. But yeah, they rode their luck a bit. There's no doubt about it, Zamora. But it looked like they'd done enough to hang on until we got to the last few minutes. Tell us a bit about how those frantic few minutes began to unfold.
Well, yeah, it just went into chaos, really. It was a great strike from Jan Enkuntra, but I'm going to have to call out Fermin on this one. I think he was beaten a bit too easily at the post that he was guarding. He got two hands onto it and flapped it towards the post and it went in. It was a good shot, but yeah, he got enough on it to should be able to stop it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think poor defending as well, really. Is a short corner, isn't it, really? Played to Encuentra. You're literally just a few minutes away from the 3 points. And I think they just switched off from home with Zamora. Decent strike, but I tend to agree. They thought Fermin, having got two hands on it, should have helped it around the post. So we're thinking, right, 1-1. Unionistas fans celebrating a huge following they brought with them from just down the road. It is a very local game. Even in English terms, it'd be a local game. In Spanish terms, it's almost like playing against a team next door. But yeah, they had a fantastic support there. I think probably a couple of thousand fans made the journey, and they were delighted. Obviously, thought they were leaving town with a point, and then it looked like it was all going to go south for them, didn't it?
Yeah. As soon as Enkuntra put it in, then out of nowhere, Zamora go down the other end with a corner, and it's very similar to their first goal, really, with Salvi being forced into a great block, and the Unionistas defence failed to react to the second ball and allows Mario Garcia to head it in, thinking they snatched all 3 points.
Yeah, we were in a press box in the home end, and pandemonium ensued around us. Everyone was going wild and hugging each other. One of my favourite bits about it was the fact that there was a guy there with his kids, and at 1-1, he was like saying to his kids, "Right, let's leave, let's go." And his kids were having none of it. And then, like 2 minutes later, he was like taking pictures and taking videos of what was going on. I was thinking, yeah, well done, kids. You've just persuaded your dad to see what looked at that point like it was going to be a Zamora victory. He would have missed if he'd got his way and walked them out of the ground on 89 minutes. But there was more drama to come, wasn't there? He probably did wish he'd left after that.
Well, didn't I say I was expecting another goal, and you said nah, it's over. But no.
Two more goals, yeah. You said that at 2-2, didn't you? I was like, right, Michael, what's going on here? I'll take 2-2. It's like 94 minutes in. They've just scored a second equaliser. That's surely the end of it. And then the irony, of course, was all those celebrations with that second equaliser that Unionistas conjured up. I think it was Delanava, wasn't it, with a strong header from a ball in from Munir on the left-hand side. We were like, this is really going to basically be the end of it, surely. But that's what I thought. I know you didn't agree with me, but the fact is that the goal that was scored to win it in the 101st minute was scored in added time, after added time, wasn't it? Presumably, mainly because Unionistas scored a goal, otherwise the game would have been over already. So yeah, incredible scenes. 9 minutes added on, and the goal was scored in the 11th extra minute, and poked in from close range by
Perimarco.
I alluded to earlier on. I like my Perimarco.
An actual proper centre forward.
Proper centre forward, exactly. That's what I like to see. Yeah, big centre forward, good in the air. And this was actually nothing to do with being good in the air at all. Just a really good reaction, poked it past the keeper, and absolute pandemonium. This time in the away end, not the home end. The home end cleared very, very quickly. And the Unionistas fans are left to celebrate it on their own. And that's, it's a fantastic victory for them in terms of their playoff potential. We know there's a whole logjam of teams looking to make it into that top 5 in Grupo 1 and quite a few in Grupo 2 as well. But this was a must-win for them. And of course, in the 90th minute, it looked like the dream had died pretty much definitively. And 11 minutes of added time later, it was very much still on. We had the Si se puede chant going up from the away fans. Conversely, Zamora threw it away, didn't they? Really, from 2-1, you've got to see that game out.
Yeah. Like we said, they sat back too deep, and they paid the price for it. I'm sorry, but it happens a lot in football. You got to be a very, very, very good and organised team to be able to do that, and you can't do it at this level of sitting back. on a lead, 1-0 lead.
And the same at 2-1, really. I think, again, they it was only 3 or 4 minutes before the equaliser came, but again, the attitude for me was quite passive, and they paid the price for it. They're still very much in the shout, of course. It's a setback, but not a terminal one. Meanwhile, Unionistas on the up and up, going into this match day in which they will play Guadalajara, of course, this weekend, which should be a cracking game. Moving on to the third of the 3 games in Grupo Uno, a massive game down the bottom and a very, very welcome win for the home side. Real Avilés Industrial 2, Orense 1. Tell us a bit about this one, Tom.
Yeah, it's very strange that Avilés changed the goalkeeper. I don't know why they'd done that after, I think it was the draw they had their last game, and also
they got beaten by Orense Club de Gacha 3-2. So maybe that was why it was. Maybe they just thought he'd had a bad day at the office, one too many bad days, and decided to change it.
Yeah, and they come into this game with no wins in 6, whereas Orense, they've been proven quite stubborn in recent form and not conceding a lot of goals. And the home side started the strongest, creating quite a few chances within the first 20 minutes. But Orense did wrestle back in with some quality from Martin Ochoa, which we both like, who the most experienced defender in Babin failed to track his movement and stay tight to him, which allowed him to rise up and with a quality header into the back of the net. And also, not long after that, should have really made it 2-0, but Almodovar made a great save to deny him.
There you go. That's why they changed the keeper, Tom. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, I really like Ochoa. I've mentioned him a few times in the past. He is a bit hit and miss, isn't he? He's one of those you feel like he needs 3 good chances to score a goal. Took his goal really well in this occasion. I hate to hear any criticism of Babin, but I would agree with you there. He's lost his man too easily, Ochoa. But the other player I'd like to mention, it's fairly obvious I'm going to mention, really, given that he got goal and assist, is a guy I called out for being a real player about, I think, 20 weeks ago, and then he's kind of disappeared ever since then, hasn't he? But he had a great game in this one.
Is it Kekala by any chance?
Indeed, it is Kekala. You are quite right. Yeah, I thought he was superb, and to say, a huge talent. I think one of the reasons I was most interested in it was because he plays for. I don't think he plays for Guinea-Bissau. I'm not sure he's a full international, but he comes from Guinea-Bissau. I don't think there are too many Guinea-Bissau players in Primera Federacion, so he caught my eye in terms of his origins, but also he caught my eye with his. I remember scoring a cracking goal from the edge of the box quite early on, and he's just completely disappeared since then. But yeah, this was one of his. I think it's probably his best game of the season, wasn't it?
Yeah, I've only seen him in spits and spurts from off the bench, and every time I've seen him, he's looked dangerous. He's got a pace, he's got physicality. He can put a ball in box. A couple of times he had a few shots that forced the keeper into a good save. But then there was the game-changing moment from Almodovar's long ball to Kekala. Who was seen to stop and pull down through on goal. It was a bit strange, really. The ref only gave a yellow for it, but it was clearly, if he was the last man through on goal, it's got to be a red. But luckily, they used one of their FVS cards to turn it into their favour and got NL Couto sent off.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, this, isn't it? Because generally, referees don't like to upgrade a yellow to a red, but you're absolutely right. For me, last man has to go. The referee correctly changed his view of the incident. And that, as you say, was the turning point. We had an equaliser for Real Avilés Industrial. And then even with the defensive resilience that Orense possessed, to hang on for that long and to get that point that they really could have done with 10, it proved to be beyond them. And Real Avilés Industrial finally have a win under their belt. I think it's only their second in 2026, isn't it, really? First win for Lolo Escobar, the new coach. And yeah, much needed.
Yeah, it nearly went to pot. Really, near the end, they had only one scare, and that was from their own defender. Eze nearly diverted the ball into his own net, but luckily the keeper had it covered and stopped it from going in.
Yeah, that would have been just the worst way, wouldn't it? To give up 2 points and an own goal in the 92nd minute against 10 men. So thankfully, it didn't happen from a Real Avilés Industrial point of view, and they breathe again in terms of staying away, at least for the moment, from that bottom five. And moving on into Grupo Dos, Eldense 3, Europa 0. We did say this was a tough assignment for the away team, Eldense being the side with the best home record now, the Grupo. I thought they did all right in the first half. Not a lot happened in terms of goal mouth action, I didn't think. And the best chance, I think, was a situation where I think it was a through ball from Fidel, who's got a lovely left foot, hasn't he? And not a bad right one either. And he pushed it through to Dione, who crossed it, and I think Borja Calvo, a little flick at the back heel, sort of behind him, sort of thing, heading for the bottom corner, just brushed past the outside of the post. But his next flick of any significance inside the area was an absolute beauty and was more productive, was it not, in the second half, Tom?
Yeah, with a lovely side-footed volley whilst falling backwards. It was almost like a chilena, really. Yeah, very impressive.
And from that point onwards, I mean, Eldense just absolutely dominated. Say Fidel used his right foot this time. They put one on a play for Robert Ibanez, and then Hamza Bellari in added time sort of walked through. I mean, it's a good finish, don't get me wrong. But yeah, he didn't encounter much resistance, did he? Let's be honest, to make it 3-0 right at the very end. And they had other chances. It could have been 5 or 6, to be perfectly honest. They look absolutely awesome right now, Eldense, and they went top with this win. And I suppose we don't want to give too much away, do we? But most people probably know already. If you haven't checked the Primera Federacion results this weekend, let's assume that you don't want to know whether they're still top right now. We'll tell you about it later on. But yeah, because this is only Friday night, so it's potentially one of those. You get your points on the board, you get yourself top, and then you have to wait and see what the others do later on in the jornada. And we'll tell you how they got on. The other two, who of course are competing for that top spot with them, that's Atletico Madrileño and Sabadell. When we get to our roundup in a not too distant future. Next up, Alcorcon 4, Hércules 0. 2 talking points for me, Tom, in the selections of the starting 11s. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I was very, very astonished by the first one I'm going to mention. Why the hell was Blažič dropped?
Yeah, I mean, I don't get that. I think he's been absolutely outstanding for Hércules. I really understand that. So I know Carlos Abad would expect to be the number one, and he's been the number one until he had that appendicitis and the emergency operation. But since Blažič come in, he's done absolutely nothing wrong as far as I can see. So I was surprised by that. I was less surprised, having seen a few Alcorcon games in recent weeks, by the fact that Vladis has started on the bench. I do wonder with him, Tom, he knows he's going to Cadiz. It would be almost impossible for him not to have an eye on the future, wouldn't it? I mean, I know he clearly is still being paid by Alcorcon, but he wanted to leave, didn't he? He wasn't allowed to. He is now going to leave in the summertime. His performance levels have really dipped in the last few weeks for me.
Yeah, I've not really been too impressed with him in the recent months. He just looks like a shadow of himself. And like you said, he probably is thinking of Cadiz next season, but could it be Cadiz in Segunda, or could it be Cadiz in Primera RF?
Very good point. He could be playing for a yellow team in Primera RF. Yeah, that wouldn't seem like such a great move for him if so. I mean, I'm really pleased about this. I'm really pleased about this for the most under fire coach in Primera Federacion, who hasn't lost his job all season. Pablo Alvarez, who's been linked with being binned for about 4 months now. The fans really don't seem to like him at all. I didn't watch Alcorcon every week, so maybe there's a reason why they don't enjoy him. But I think his team have been threatening to do this to someone for quite a while, and the reason why I'm surprised by the decision to drop Blažič and play Carlos Abad. But I don't think it was massively significant to this game, because if you take the game as a whole, Abad made several good saves. He had no chance of the 4 goals. For me, they just absolutely destroyed them, and it had nothing to do with the change of keeper.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, Abad didn't put one foot wrong. He had an excellent game, but it's what can Blažič expect now? How's he going to get back in? He's got a bad spot now, isn't it?
Yeah, it looks like it is. Yeah, I mean, Leicester conceding 4 goals means that's the end of his return to the first team, and I would say that's equally harsh because, as you rightly say, he had no chance with any of the goals made. So, I mean, one save at the near post, which was absolutely tremendous from a corner, flick on from a corner, and his reflex is quite superb. So he's a great keeper, Aban, but I would question whether he should have been brought back in for this game. I certainly would question also if he were dropped after this game because, as I say, he had a decent game. I thought Alcorcon were absolutely outstanding. They went ahead just for the break. Macas scored, and then after that, just destroyed them. I was expecting Hércules to come back after the interval and really be up for it, but Aparicio scored very early on in the second half, and then Alcorcon just walked all over them for the remaining 40 minutes or so. Raul Blanco curled a beauty in, and look where Alcorcon are now. They are 3 points adrift of Europa, who are in 5th place, and so very much in the playoff conversation. And I have to say, not just because of Alex O'Brien, one of our listeners, who's a massive Alcorcon fan, I'd love to see them make it. Probably as much because here is a coach who's been constantly derided for what he's been doing, and I think that's been harsh at times. I think Alcorcon have been pretty good this season. They've been a bit unlucky. I'd love to see them make the players for him so he could just basically stick it to them.
Yeah, and also I like a team in yellow. You know me. So.
We like the kids. Nick likes the kids. Yeah, it's one of Nick's favourite kid ever. So yeah, he clearly deserves to have. It's certainly his favourite kit of this season. I think is the Alcorcon home kit. So let's get them there for Pablo Alvarez, for Alex O'Brien, and for Nick, and for ourselves as well, because we wouldn't be too devastated if they made it. We'd be delighted to see them playing in the end of season bonanza that is the playoffs. One team we'd be delighted not to see in the playoffs. Let's be honest. And we're not talking about Real Murcia here. Don't worry, Real Murcia fans. Real Murcia 2, Atlético Madrileño 1. For me, this is the worst possible time to play Real Murcia, isn't it? They've been pretty rubbish all season, apart from that spell in the middle when they were very good for Adrian Colunga. But they've won the last 2 games before this one, didn't they? They beat, I think, Tarazona and Sevilla Atletico, both really poor games overall, 1-0 wins. But that's what happens when you win 2 games 1-0. You get a performance like you got in this one, I think.
Yeah, it's Curo Torres has got a tune out of them. Sort of seems to be settling on a set side really, because previous management kept chopping and changing each game, and it's just like, what is the aim here? And also this result has put them in good stead, I think. Yeah,
very much so, and totally deserved it. I thought they were really good. I think you saw from the start a team that's far more confident. As I say, winning games breeds confidence, doesn't it? However you win them, you win 2 in a row after a pretty poor run, you're going to feel better going into a game like this. I knew that they would fancy this one, given where they're at right now, and they played like they were really up for it. They went ahead early on. I don't know what you think about this one, though, as a keeper, Tom. Is this a mistake from the keeper? I mean, Oscar Hill eventually heads it home, but the first save that he sort of beats out in a rather feeble way, I put that down as a mistake to him.
Yeah, I have to agree. I don't know why he didn't catch it or at least dive on the ball. He was under no pressure, no one near him.
Yeah, that was exactly my summation of it. Yeah, really poor. I've never played in goal properly in my life, but I still thought this was a pretty poor effort. And they both had a goal disallowed after that, both the home side and the visitors. And then Jorquera, who came there with a lot of promise. He played obviously for Eldense in Segundo, although not a regular there. But I think he's on loan for a team in Portugal. Hasn't really performed regularly at the level at which I believe him to be capable, but it's a beautiful strike, isn't it, in off the post?
Yeah, the few times that I've seen him play, he's probably been one of the bright sparks in a poor Real Murcia team. But yeah, what an absolute hit! Probably one of the top 3 goals of this match day.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, really good strike. And of course, the visitors came back after the break and did cut the deficit. I actually thought that John Garcia gave away 2 penalties. I thought he actually fouled the Atletico Madrid player once, got away with it, and then he got up and Garcia flattened him again. The second penalty was given. Obviously, the referee didn't think the first one was enough. But then Ortiz got a bit lucky. Penalty, struck straight at the keeper. Gazzaniga saves it well, comes straight back to him, tucks it away. And again, I thought a bit like Hercules in the game we just mentioned. I expected Atletico Madrid to push on from that and really put some pressure on Real Madrid. There's still half an hour to go, but I thought they held them fairly comfortably. I thought Benito should have made it 3-1, to be fair. Missed a great chance on the breakaway. And they've now won 3 in a row, and they're now 5 points off the playoffs. Could they possibly now somehow salvage a top 5 finish in the season?
Who knows with this crazy league? Every team in that sort of situation is in with a shout, so I can't rule it out.
No, I'm inclined to agree. I mean, they really seem like the kind of team, they could get 20-25,000 there for their remaining home games, no problem. There's any sniff of a chance that, despite all the disappointment they've suffered this season, their fans, that they'll be back in their droves, won't they, if they think there's any possibility of a top 5 finish. And in fact, there's a decent turnout for this one as well. So yeah, there's still real potential there, isn't there? But you would have to think that with not that many games to go, they'd probably need to win most of them. Let's go on to the roundup. Grupo Uno. Tenerife slips up at home against Cacereño. Shout out for Joel Harrison here. I think he is at least an occasional listener, if not a regular listener. I'm not sure which category he falls into, but yeah, he's a big Tenerife fan. This is his first game, first home game on the island, and yeah, it could have been worse for him, I suppose. Cacereño had a goal disallowed, didn't they, for a marginal offside?
Yeah, very, very tight, and I've seen quite a few Cacereño fans not happy with the decision, but it's marginal, let's say.
Yeah, it's a really tight one, isn't it? And I think that we agree, don't we, Tom, and various other people have been saying online this week that we don't like to see these kind of offside decisions given with the technology available to us. It's so marginal that I think that the striker should get the benefit of the doubt there. But yeah, it was disallowed, and so Joel got a draw for his troubles, for his considerable effort to make his way from England to Tenerife to watch that one. So I'm pleased for him that he didn't witness a defeat in his maiden voyage to the Elidon Rodriguez. That should have given Celta Fortuna an opportunity to capitalise, but they didn't. They lost 5-1 against Real Madrid Castilla, and that result moved Real Madrid Castilla into the playoff places. We might quite have been tempted to go to this, mightn't we, Tom? Because it was pretty close to Guadalajara, where we were just a few hours before. We don't like filiales, as we say, but it's a Primera Federacion game between 2 teams up at the top of the table. But unfortunately, we weren't able to, were we?
No, and yeah, I don't understand the reason really why we couldn't get in to watch the game. It's only available to Real Madrid members. I think you said about the excuse they gave was about stopping the Fondo Sur from getting in, which I find it hard to believe.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's many people that look less like a member of the Fondo Sur than me, to be honest, Tom. You do. I mean, I could imagine you turning up in your all black gear and looking for a fight, but not me. I mean, I'm far too passive for that. So yeah, I mean, it's a rule, and they don't care whether we care about not getting in or not. They're just going to enforce it, and it's another reason why it's a pretty dislikable club for me in many ways, that they can just do that and no one can do anything about it. Never mind, we didn't go. We weren't that bothered. But yeah, it just sums them up, really. And Ponferradina were the big movers in Grupo Uno in terms of the top 6. They beat Merida 4-1. They're into 3rd place now. Lugo thought they were going to stay in top 5. And then they conceded an injury time winner. It wasn't an equaliser, was it? A winner against Osasuna Promesas. So they dropped out of the top 5. So yeah, a little bit of movement. But Ponferradina being the biggest team to capitalise on some fairly inconsistent performances from teams around them. And of course, as we say, Pontevedra just outside that top 5, but they have got this game in hand away at Arenas Club de Guecho this Wednesday to try and push themselves back into the playoff picture. At the bottom, Osasuna Promesas, back-to-back wins. They looked doomed a few match days ago. We were all ready to write them off and delighted to do so. But then they're just 5 points from safety. However, Alan Taylor look like their numbers up, don't they?
Yeah, it's going to be a very tough ask for them to recover. Yeah, they're pretty much doomed. Sorry, Aaron Taylor.
Yeah. I mean, they let Ares de Getxo come back from 1-0 down to win this one 2-1. Of course, let's not forget that Ares de Getxo did the same to Real Avilés Industrial. They're pushing towards mid-table now, which is a tremendous achievement from John Edithe's boys. Probably the smallest club, I would say, in this group, or if not in both divisions. So tremendous achievement from them, although they do, of course, have the advantage of being able to borrow some really good players from Athletic Club down the road. And talking of Athletic Club, Bilbao Athletic got beaten this weekend by Talavera, and that win, that remontada from Talavera, moves them out of the bottom five. And that's bad news from our point of view, isn't it? Because it means that despite the fact we witnessed a tremendous fighting 1-0 victory, not literally fighting, but a battling 1-0 victory from Deportivo Guadalajara against Racing Ferrol, they are back into the relegation zone because Talavera have moved above them with that win. And of course, Real Avilés Industrial also won. Grupo Dos. So we said we'd tell you about the teams up the top alongside Eldense, and the news for Eldense was very good as the weekend went on, wasn't it?
Yeah, obviously Atletico Madrileño losing to Real Murcia, and Sabadell losing 3-1 against Betis Deportivo, which is very unexpected.
Yeah, couldn't believe that at all. I think that's the biggest surprise of the weekend, wasn't it, really? Really tremendous performance, much as I hate to admit it, from Betis Deportivo. Interesting as well, the only other team I think that's really done well, in fact, the only team I can think of that scored more than one goal at the No Creo Alta, it is Juventud de Torremolinos. So it seems like the team's, struggling down the bottom, which I suppose Juventud de Torremolinos, regardless of the fact we said earlier they're having a good season, they are nearer the bottom than the top, aren't they? It's interesting that those are two sides that have caused Sabadell the most problems on their own patch. Villarreal B were winners this weekend. They've moved into fourth spot ahead of Europa. They won 1-0 away at Marbella. And we've also got Teruel and Cartagena on the verge of that playoff picture. They both won 1-0 as well. And they're both within a point of the top five. The bottom five is unchanged. However, there was a great result for my favourite team in Grupo Dos this weekend.
Yeah, Tarrafona. Thanks to a Christian Aguero's 101st minute penalty in El Maui, which earned them the 3-2 win against Antequera.
Yeah, delighted with that, obviously. Really enjoyed being able to add some Aguero soundtrack from that famous moment back at the Etihad Stadium 12 or 13 years ago, and using it to celebrate Cristiano Aguero's late winner. But yeah, they still unfortunately in the bottom five, but they have drawn level in points with Nastic, Tarragona. Betis Deportivo are also trying to break out of that top bottom five with that win. They're only 5 points away from safety. But the bottom three are gone, I think, aren't they? Marbella, Atlético San Luqueño, and Sevilla Atlético. I think they're as good as down already, aren't they?
Yeah. It's just a fight for that those remaining spots. And it's going to be quite a tough fight, especially for the clubs down there, like Torremolinos losing the manager, and Murcia on the up, and Gimnastic not looking convincing at all. They could be in serious trouble.
It just shows how quickly things change, doesn't it? Because, a few weeks ago, we're lauding Antequera's run and the fact they didn't draw many, but they win plenty and lose a few. And they were like on the verges of the playoffs. And now you look at them, they must be looking nervously over their shoulders now, because I think they're only 4 points above the bottom five. So things can change really, really quickly. And hopefully Tarazzona's upward momentum will continue, although I think they've got Alcorcon this weekend. So that's not the easiest way to build on a great win on the road last season. Let's look at the Grupo Uno games to watch this week. It's my turn to choose, is it not? And I am starting off with a game between Talavera and Zamora. I know we featured Zamora last week, but we're going to go with Talavera Zamora again. I'm not expecting a lot of goals in this one, so please don't go for the plus 2.5 goals or anything like that if you're a betting person. But I do think it's a massive game for both teams. Zamora really disappointing defeat right at the end last week, and Talavera, of course, need to build on that win that they had last week. A really good remontada in the Fama against Bilbao Athletic to try and push away from that bottom five. The Battle of the Ponds is also one that gets. Sorry, I should have said that game kicks off at 3 p.m. The battle, and that's on the Sunday. The battle, actually 4 p.m. if you're in Spain, 3 p.m. in England. The Battle of the Ponds is another one that really interests me at 4 p.m. same time. Pontevedra versus Ponferradina. Both sides looking to finish in the top five. And of course, the third one that really could be a boost if they can get a win in it. Anyway, they need to get their playoff bid back on track as well. And that's Merida entertaining Tenerife at 6:15 on the Sunday. So all three games are chosen from me from a sort of 3-hour spell on the Sunday afternoon. So you probably can't fit all of them in unless you're more adept at watching games at the same time as me. But take your pick from those games and enjoy them if you can. And Grupo Dos, what have you chosen?
Well, I've gone for sort of battle for relegation, I think. I've gone for Tarazona versus Alcorcon on the Saturday 4:15 kickoff. Both with really positive results from this previous weekend. Be interesting to see if Alcorcon can carry those 4 goals over to Tarazona. And for my second game, I've already mentioned them, how poor they look, is Gimnastic versus Real Murcia. Real Murcia looking to be on the up, and Gimnastic nervously looking over their shoulders. That's also Saturday. It's a 6:30 p.m. kickoff. And then to finish off early on a Sunday with a 12 o'clock kickoff between Udi Ibiza versus Torremolinos. Again, 2 teams just hovering just above those relegation zones, and interesting to see how Torremolinos react to losing their manager and see who's in charge of that game.
Yeah, I think Ibiza, you're right. They're still very much in danger of relegation, aren't they? With teams beneath them, I think the likes of Betis Deportivo aren't going to catch them, but it certainly Tarazona will have a good go, I would think. And that looks like an interesting set of fixtures, and they fit in quite nicely with my fixtures. You could probably watch most of those between the times that they're being played, if you've got the entire weekend to dedicate to Primera Federacion football. But if you haven't, try and catch some of them, or at least catch the highlights, and we'll hope to be telling you all about lots of goals in about a week's time. Thanks, Tom, for your company over the weekend, as well as your company this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure as always.
And same to you, mate, and hope to do it soon again.
Yeah, we'll certainly plan that way and try and get perhaps one more trip in for the end of the season. Thank you all of you for listening. Please do pass on the word. We still meet people all the time, especially in Spain, who've no idea that we're doing what we're doing. And so please do spread the good word. Follow us on X, and please get in touch with us if you've got any ideas for the show or anything else you want to know. We're not experts, but I think we know a fair bit, don't we, between us, Tom and Nick as well. So ultimately, we would love to hear from you if you've got time to get in touch with us. Great to be able to be looking forward to the end of the season with so much still to play for. We'll see you again in a week. Hasta luego.